5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening. How the devil are we all? Welcome along. This is Leicester Till I Die, and it is Friday. It is 7 o'clock, but it is International Football Week.
Yeah, the crowd goes wild.
We played last night, Brad.
Did we?
Yeah.
Did we? What, please, the women's? Which team?
No, it was the full English men's, like a full English breakfast. Full English men's, but apparently I'd forgotten it was on. It was only because I went on to watch something else, and the TV turned on Channel 3. We were playing Wales. It was only a fucking friendly. It was nothing to do with World Cup qualifiers or even Nations League.
Yeah, I'm so glad we have international pointless fucking friendlies to fucking disrupt the season. It's absolutely 1,000,000% absolutely necessary that Thomas Tuchel or any international manager needs a break to see his players.
Don't sit on that fence, Brad.
No, I'll get off it eventually, Chris.
Do welcome along. If you are in the chat, please join in. Let me know your thoughts on this particular subject. Blue Fox, afternoon, evening, Chris, Brad, and everyone in the chat. Hello from Canada. Blue Fox, how the devil are you? I've turned it on. So hopefully I've turned it on. So your comments should come up in the bottom corner. Like, subscribe, share. Do all that shit, and if you're listening on your favourite podcast platform, thank you for lending us your ear. Look, we started the season well, Brad, and I think Top must be extremely happy that we have, because I think it is masking anything else that might be going on at the club. Because look, fans are going to be, are not overly bothered what's going on if we're doing well.
Yeah, it does take the sting out of it, and it probably makes decisions like this kind of not necessarily go on notice, because this is a big-ish a departure. It's going to go noticed, but it's not going to get met with such uproar of, well, this should have been done years ago because look at us, look at the state she's got, and then she becomes the villain. Now, I'm not saying she's not, and I'm not saying she isn't. What I'm saying is the fans literally will look at any big major dismissal and go, well, thank God that problem's gone, because look at the state we're in. We're 17th in the championship. Money, transfers. Look at the things. Everything would be thrown at her. Like she's her new name's actually, Susan. I forgot his.
Goodkin.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. Yeah, you saved me because I couldn't think of his last name.
Because he was struggling, I thought, should I let you just dig that hole even deeper?
You should do.
Look, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first of all, because
go on, Dumbo. Go in the kitchen. I'm streaming. Go away. Sorry, I just get the elephant out of the room.
Oh, but yeah, tell him to go and ring his mother. He can make a trunk call.
For God's sake.
Anyway. let me ask the question, and I want to say first of all, if nobody has seen it yet, please do get on to LTID TV YouTube channel and check out the last video we did, which was behind the closed doors. I was speaking to Dave Bartram, ex-lead singer of Show Waddy Waddy, a big Leicester band, and he is very much, he's got a season ticket. He's very much involved with the courtesy and the looking after fans and what have you, and they book special packages and what have you. And he told me a few things that made me stop and think, "Oh, I didn't know that." So please do go and check that out. It's called Behind Closed Doors, and it is well worth a watch. And I've got to say thanks to Dave, who approached me. He's a friend of mine. He approached me and he said, "Look, I'm not. I don't think things are good at the moment. Shall we have a moan?" And basically, we did. But the big question is, has the wrong person resigned from the club?
No. I don't think she should be the only one that resigns from the club, but I think she is one of the heads that, look, she never went out with the intention to disrupt the club and bring it on the brink of several PSR occurrences. She obviously didn't intend to put this club in such an off balance that 2 relegations and restrictions in transfer budget and availability would be the outcome of it. But she is one of the heads that should have rolled a few years ago, along with Cheeks Maloney. They are 2 very obvious names.
Who start?
I'll start. I've started, so I'll finish. As I said, quiz shows. I think it's Mastermind, which we aren't, but we'll try. Yeah. Just because some of the information that was actually made privy to us as fans, and also she's came out and stated herself, which raised the question to me, Chris, and I can't remember the exact word of the tweet, but I remember a small line or two, maybe a paragraph of it, where she basically insinuated that she instructed and drew up a budget for Champions League football for Brendan Rodgers to have to get European football. That was the word. She constructed a budget and a way to allocate it and not break the rules regarding getting Champions League football. It seems that Brendan Rodgers was told to get European football, and maybe he should have been told it needs to be Champions League football so that he didn't try to nullify the talk of Champions League football when we were 3rd in them seasons. Yeah. Maybe then he would have gone, you're European good, but you're not going to help us get Champions League good. I'll spend an extra, you know what I mean? He could have delegated the budget, and anyone who saw that tweet was probably about a month, 2 months ago, around about that time. She might have to dig deep to find it on her Twitter page unless she's removed it. But that was one part I took away from her tweet. It felt like that was her outspoken defence to Top, asking her, why has this gone so badly for us? This is one of your main tasks, along with Cheeks Mahoney next year.
Well, it's a good point. I hadn't seen that. I don't follow her, to be honest with you.
It popped up on my news feed. That's how I just know.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't seen that, but good point. But we were talking just then about myself and Dave Bartram. By the way, Michael says yes, definitely the wrong person has gone. And Ray says, I'm not saying it's her fault, but you can't have a situation where you're not speaking to the director of football. Well, bear with me, Ray. Bear with me.
Where's this bear? What chapter?
He's gone out with the elephant. This is what we talked about behind closed doors with Dave Bartram. There is no communication whatsoever between the top 3 board members, as was Top, Susan, and John. There is a possibility of a promotion for one of those. Well, one of the three's gone, so it only leaves two. So I'll let you know who's in the position to actually get promoted. There's no leaders there. Nobody prepared to sort of, you need leaders on the pitch, but you also need leaders in the boardroom as well. There's a toxic atmosphere around the club. And when we talk about which board members were not talking for almost 2 years, I'd been told, in fact, I was told by Steve, brackets, Elm, brackets, that it was Susan Wheelan and John Rudkin. But apparently, Susan Wheelan and Top hadn't spoken for 2 years. Now, if the chief executive that is running that club in your absence is not talking to you as owner, no wonder the shit's hitting the fan.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's not like she's gone out to sabotage. I'm sure she was left by some form of degree from someone. This is what he wants. And you're talking 2 years, Chris. That's very strange when you consider that they sit not too far from each other at most home games, because he's at most the home games. There's no.
But if you look, and I was looking at a picture earlier, and it had Top at the end, Cheeks Maloney, Rudkin in the middle, and then his brother on the other side of Top. In the row behind was Susan Wheelan.
Yeah, now
so she didn't have to actually talk to him.
Yes. Now that raises the question that they must have had a fallout, but how long the fallout? You'd have to go. I'd beg the question, because I'm pretty certain last season we saw Balls Mahoney Cheeks Malloy one side of him, and
it has been a while, to be honest with you. A lot of the pictures, yes, that used to happen. But most recently, she has been positioned behind him.
And maybe it's not been exactly 2 years, or maybe it's taken the last few months for it to get to a point where he doesn't want to.
2 years is ambiguous, let's put it that way.
I've noticed it myself, Chris. I am with you on that point.
Yes. And finally, as you know, we are no longer owned by King Power. We are owned by Top and his family. Top, I think, has got 25, his mother's got 25, and then the other 50% of the shares are between his brothers and sisters. There is a member of that family who actually wants to sell the club, allegedly. Now, again, if this was coming from anybody but the gentleman I mentioned before, I might go, yeah, really? But obviously he does have an insight, because he is behind the scenes with the club. Now, if you watch behind closed doors, you'll see who it is. You know that will tell you who it is. It's one of the big two shareholders, and it's not Top. So there we go. That's kind of narrowed it down a little bit, hasn't it? As Ray says there, it's no wonder we're in the shape we're in. It is now. Whether Top isn't speaking to Susan or Susan's not speaking to John. Well, it's supposed to be. Well, football these days is a fucking business, isn't it? So, how can you run a business that's worth millions when your three most powerful people that run that business aren't in conversation with each other?
Well, that's maybe where the decision's been made. And that's why this decision has now, it's not so much out of nowhere, but I suppose a little bit. But in terms of fans, this isn't about out of nowhere. Now, I know you're going to talk about a certain man's tweet in a bit. I assume that's on this show.
Yeah.
But I feel like if what has been relayed to you has some truth behind it, Chris, I could have an idea about watching that show, who that person is, and I can imagine they've turned around to Top and said, we either give this to someone else to deal with, or we take the ball by the horns and get real with this club, and we go back to how we were when when Father was alive. Let's Make the big decisions. Let's make the big calls. Because if you're intent on selling, or you're actually a bit like, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, you don't sack anyone like this. You don't. You just don't. You kind of just go, let's get out, let's get it sold. If you then decide, no, we are going to grab the ball by the horns, we are going to tackle this. This is our club, not theirs. I'm going to start making decisions. I've looked through it all. It took me a couple of months. I know I'm not talking to what's her face and cheeks loving Mahoney over there, but I've come to the decision. Things need to change, and she's got to go. And maybe that's what's happened.
I think yes. I know. Quite possibly. We will never know fully.
No,
We'll never know how much. What I was told. Well, it's out there. Like I say, just go and watch the video, everybody. You don't know how much of that is true. We'll never know. We will never ever know, with all confidentiality clauses and what have you, what happened. But I mean, I just think if you are thinking of selling the club, then selling it with Susan Wheelan there is an asset. She's one of the best businesswomen in women's business, if you like. She was at King Power before she came to Leicester City. And the thing, because when Vichai, rest in peace, passed, that's basically when it all, as we can probably believe, when it all started to sort of go, shit and hit the fan, because at that point, Susan Wheelan was taken out of having anything to do with the football side of the club.
Mm.
And it was all given to Mr. Rudkin. Now, you could argue what success he's had since then, what, success he hasn't had since then. Do you look at the recent window and go, yeah, the money he got for those players, he actually didn't have a bad window? We will never, ever know. But for me, if one person has got to go, it shouldn't have been this person. And I'm not saying she's blameless. Look, she was sat there and got, the accounts on her desk and didn't send them off on time. Was that because she was forgetful, or was that because she was told, hang on to them as long as you can? Yeah, we'll never know those sort of things, will we? She, it's not her job, said one person, to actually organise sponsorship. Somebody else says, well, she was the one that got us in bed with K-Bet, which all went a bit tits up, because they're not, a registered UK company and with all the rules and everything to go with it. And we've now ended up with no sponsor. But look, I want to say, look, she arrived, or she served as chief executive for 15 years. Joined back in 2010, when obviously, things were happening, and left in October. I just want to go through, these are the things that we've achieved, and it's not all obviously down to Susan Wheelan. It is a team, but the Premier League title, Wheelan was at the helm when Leicester City achieved one of the most astonishing feats in English football history. Promotion to the Premier League the season before. She led the club back to the top flight of English football after a decade-long absence. FA Cup victory. Look, we'd never won it. We'd had more attempts at trying to than anybody else. We won it while she was at the helm. The club participated in 3 European campaigns during her tenure, including obviously the Champions League quarter-final. And this is interesting, community engagement. Wheelan was instrumental in launching the LCFC Foxes Foundation in 2012, which was later renamed the Vichai, well, you know what his name is, Foundation, following the tragic passing of the club's chairman. The foundation continues to support various causes in Leicestershire. So she's very heavily involved. And again, when you look at our success, Brad, let me take you back to how successful to a point we were under Pearson, Shakespeare and Walsh. As a package, that was the perfect package, wasn't it, really? When Walsh went to Everton, we didn't end up getting good players like we had been doing. And then if you look at Pearson's career post and rest of the piece again, Craig Shakespeare, he never had the success. Clough and Taylor, another example. And, was that success based on the group that was there? Feechai at the start, Susan, Top and John to some degree.
Yeah. Most success is hidden behind the people that do the donkey work. That was easy for me to say. It's usually a case of you made the perfect point now with the Clough and Taylor thing, that sometimes you separate them two, they don't go quite as well or as successful. Now they can still be successful, because to a relative degree, Susan's been quite pragmatic and quite successful in what she's paid to do since the Passion of Ishai, since taking full responsibility from Cheeks Maloney, because I can't even remember his name now. It's just Cheeks Maloney. I know it's Rudkin. It's just clicked in my brain, but that's what I meant. She's had these added responsibilities. She's not had the same personnel around her that she usually probably has a lot better connection and dealings with, as it's turned out to be, and she's managed to do it. But once you keep shredding away at that personnel and at that foundation, you leave somebody who unfortunately bites the bullet in this case, because anybody she could lean on, anybody that she could maybe go, to like rest in peace, Fisher, sir, I'm not too sure about this. I want to make the right decision for you and the club. Which one, option A or option B? And he'll go, if you believe in this, back it. If not, go for this one. And that wisdom you lose, Chris. And that's what it is. It is wisdom. It is business wisdom. And that's a big thing we've lost as well, Chris. With his passing, sadly, I know they're a business-orientated family, but he had such wisdom. He had a way to look at a problem and not almost solve it, but give you the answers to kind of guide you on your way. And when you lose that, and then you hear that there's disruption in the boardroom, there's no way she can communicate that, because it's, no, you stole my yogurt pot out of the staff kitchen, so I'm not talking to you for 2 years, sort of attitude that it seems that we're playing around with here. How's she supposed to be as successful as she was when the foundations were good? And that's where we're at now, Chris, and that's why we've got to a situation where we have.
Excuse me, yeah. Ray says there we won the Premier League 10 bloody years ago. We did, but it's going to be like that. This is our 1966. Let's be honest with you. England football, well, it's been how many years since we last won the World Cup? When did we win the last World Cup? And I think it's going to be the same with us with the Premier League. And look, I'm not blaming all this on Top, because he was dealt a pretty shitty hand, and I don't think anybody would have blamed him if he'd left after the passing of Vichai. But he stuck with it. He loves the club. His heart's in the right place, but I just don't think he's the businessman that his dad was. Now, I'm not necessarily saying sell the club, Top, or I want you out of the club. What I'm saying is get people in that know what they're doing. So we're now in the position of our chief executive is out of the country 7/10 of the week, if you like, right? Is that the way to run the football club?
No, of course it's not.
It's not, no. So, this obviously wasn't planned. This is something that's just obviously blown up, because if it was planned, you'd have somebody else in. All right, he's taken the job temporary. I'm interested to see how temporary that is, because if we don't get somebody in that's a proper CEO that's done it at other clubs, etc., then we could really be seeing, they say the rise and fall of the Roman Emperor. We could be looking at the rise and fall of Leicester City here. And as Ray says there, more power in Rudkin's hand. And as I said a few shows ago, I think if you're looking at a battle between Wheelan and Rudkin, there's only ever going to be one winner there.
Yeah, and you know what? It absolutely baffles me how this isn't a double dismissal. Or, okay, she resigned. That's a bit of a save face. That's an amicable way that most people do business. You'd rather them, you're accepting being sacked, so you resign from your position. So it looks better on you, it looks better on your CV, and then they can go, oh, well, she resigned. You know, it works. It's the natural, perfect way for it to get on with it. My worry is, Chris, and this is where I said at the start that she's not the only one that should be walking to the Leicestershire job centre. That man who's been given all the power, a wise Maldini.
I don't
Oh, you're frozen. No, he's completely frozen my end. What's going on?
may have frozen there a minute, so I apologise.
Yeah, you froze. I wasn't sure if it was me, so I turned my camera off, and now you're working. So I don't know if it was my camera that's bugged the whole thing, but I turned the camera off, and you start moving. So
all I would say is I can't believe I should have expected the Maldini quote because
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
exactly, Chris. But no, you know, to quote a famous movie line, Chris, with great power comes great responsibility. You know,
you'd think that was from a classic 50s Hollywood blockbuster, wouldn't you?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's Spider-Man, and yes, it's Uncle Ben, not the Rice, the actor. To put that in its full perspective, but it's very true, and that's why these movie references like that become memorable, because it's very true. And I feel like we're creating the arse cheek Voldemort by giving this guy all the power in the world, because he's going to commit the dark arts with it. And we could be in 10 years' time discussing how did Leicester go from Premier League winners to League Two and struggling in the bottom of the League Two, because he completely lets it go completely to his head.
Yeah.
If anything, Chris, it should have been a case of John sat there all smug going, I'm untouchable. No. And then Top going, and another thing, mate, you're out and all. It should have been a double dismissal. I still stand by that, because collectively, by this argument, by this fallout, by this, you wouldn't know. I don't know if you know the show. Maybe your kids watched it growing up. Recess. There was a little rat that used to write down all the notes and go to the head. She was like the deputy headmistress, and he'd go, Miss Finster. That's what feels like John Rudkin is. He feels like he's going to top, going, top. Look what I caught Susan doing. She didn't wipe her bum in the toilet. I'm grassing. And it just feels like he's just like, oh, my precious child, here, have a cookie. Instead of going, I don't care, John.
You led a very strange upbringing.
I have, but
you really
know the show Recess. Maybe that's why I know you got some.
I think it was a cartoon, wasn't it? American cartoon. Yeah. I didn't watch it, but I remember.
I imagine you've seen it in the background.
Yes. I'm not. I'm a bit older than that. Ray says too much handsomeness for one screen. That is very true. Look, this is what one quote here says: because on the pitch matters take focus, it may not be appreciated how big last week's news of Susan Wheeler's departure from City is. And I think that's it. And I said at the start, didn't I? Is the fact that we're doing well, people are going, well, somebody had to go.
Well, I think, like you said, Chris, this has been something that's been boiling to a point, and if you put all the pieces, if you take all the allegedlys together, and I know your friend, you're very good. What's his name, Chris? You've only mentioned it 37 times. What was his name?
I'm not one for. I can't name my sources.
Oh well, I can.
But actually, it was a certain Mr. Maldini. They're just
yes, famous Maldini. Yeah, but my point is, Chris, if you know information that you've brought on this show that I didn't know from your previous show, behind closed doors. You know, and the information that I know from that tweet, and actually whilst you were talking, because you're boring, no, you weren't really joking. I looked up the definition of what a CEO gets in charge of through day-to-day.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to talk about some of these things. And it's interesting to look at all the pieces, all the failings within the club. And it's not really a surprise that she's gone. In retrospect, Chris, with her role and her responsibilities, and added responsibilities, I'm sure, we're actually, at the moment, we have a chance to cut this off and just be the rise and fall of Susan Wheelan before it invests the club. It's not a case of someone has to go. I can't. We're having too much of a good time. We've got to chop them. They need to go, Chris. It's a bit like the squad, Chris. Eventually, you need fresh blood in there. You need fresh blood in the dress.
I still come back to, yes, we needed fresh blood in, but if one had to go,
yeah, they both need to go. Why are we not hearing?
Oh yeah, no, totally. But I think if it had to be one, as Frida Payne once sang, why did it have to be me? I want to just quote you something here. I'm not a great Bible reader, but I just want to quote you from the Bible. My son, because of course your dad's up there. You know, he's up there. He's a roofer. So he says in the Bible, because I've got to say, and you'll see why in a minute. A scapegoat is one of a pair of kid goats that is released into the wilderness, taking with it all sins and impurities, while the other is sacrificed. The concept first appears in the book of Leviticus, in which a goat is designated to be cast into the desert to carry away the sins of the community. Now, this is what Dave said the other night. I just felt Susan was made a scapegoat. She's not really done anything wrong, and those culpable for the state of the club and the direction we're going in. Look, we're all very passionate about our club, and we want to win games. But ultimately, we really have been misled. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that is, and I think the only word I can use, and it's a big word, Chris, is Machiavellian.
Well, I wish you'd used a smaller word so I understood what Machiavellian means, because that sounds like someone who's top of the Lithuanian leads.
No, Machiavellian is, as far as I understand, it's someone that's sneaky, that goes around and does things for his own benefit, without worrying about what effect it might have on other people, and looking you in the face and going, "Hello, we're friends. How are you?" But all the time. In fact, I'll let me just get it up here. Cunning, scheming, and unscrupulous.
Could have used any of them words and I've understood what he meant until that last word.
Well, you go back to recess.
I will do. In fact, Chris, let me just tell you this. I find it very strange that a lot of people seem to feel that, this is unjust, that this is undeserving, right, Chris? I have got a list of things. I typed in a CEO in a football club and what their role should, and I'm not saying she did do all of these, but I'm pretty sure she would have done the majority of them, right? So first of all, strategic leadership. Well, we know that's gone because she couldn't communicate with one of them for 2 years, right? Financial.
That's a two-way street, though. Remember.
No, yeah, I get that, and I'm not so blameless on that. Well, not blameless because we don't know what's caused it, but
indeed.
Can't do anything about strategic leadership if she's been given the cold shoulder. Fair. Yeah. Financial management manages the club's budget, ensures financial stability, and oversees day-to-day financial operations. We have PSL charges, we have court cases, we have no financial stability. Our owners are constantly taking out loans. Now, again, that's business aside. That's the fall of King Power, takes share of responsibility. And again, I'm not posting all of the responsibility on her shoulders, but she's still involved, Chris. The next one, the thing about, she has nothing to do with sponsorship. Commercial development leads commercial activities, including securing sponsorships. So maybe the fact that we've missed out on a huge pay packet and got a dodgy dealings from BC Gaming is the straw that broke the camel's back, Chris. The fact
I think the straw that broke the camel's back was her dealings with this K-Bet.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's so people that were saying she doesn't have anything to do with sponsorship, yes, she does. And maybe that's where agreement with you, Chris. People management provides leadership for all non-football staff, managing recruitment, performance, acting, and that's link between the staff and the board. Again, that's probably a shared responsibility, but again, right or wrongly, she's not been able to do that role.
No, as far as I know, on that bit, she had nothing to do with recruitment since.
Yeah, so again, that's why I'm just reading them out as they are.
No, I'm just bringing back that. Yeah.
Footballing operation support works with the football management team to support them in contractual and HR matters, allowing them to focus on the sport. Again, whether that was delegated to someone else, maybe it was someone who worked underneath her. The book stops with her if that is a role she has. If, again, we're kind of meh on that one. Stakeholder relations act as a main point of contact for key stake or shareholders for English people, such as boards, sponsors, and football governing bodies. So that's clearly a role she has a heavy, had a heavy hand in. And maybe she put her hand too far in the cookie jar on that one, and that's why it's blown up in front of her face. Operational oversight, the last one on the list, Chris, is responsible for the management of the club's stadium and ensuring compliance with relevant legislation. That's probably something she has a bit minimal involvement because of how involved King Power are. I'll be honest with you. That's probably more for an owner that sits in Dubai, buys a club and goes, that's what I've hired you to do. You run it for me sort of thing. So maybe not the last part, but a lot there, Chris, rides upon transfer budgets, PSR budgets. Again, going back to the tweet about budgeting for Champions League, when Rodgers was under the impression it was just European football. The sponsors scenario we've been in the last 2 and a bit seasons or whatever it is, it just feels like that's a lot of finance that's gone wrong there, Chris. And that's maybe what it is. It's not the Rudkin and throwing his diaper at her in the classroom or whatever, getting her in trouble. It's your main responsibility, Susan, was to make us financially stable, and this club is falling under that infrastructure that we can't buy anybody. I can't give managers transfers. I can't commit. We lost Enzo because I told him, sorry, boss, no pot to piss in. We lost a really great manager there. Cifuentes, thank God, is understanding, but this is enough, Susan. I can't have you working here. I need someone else to come in. And that's maybe what's led to her going, okay, then I resign from my role. I understand.
Again, we'll never know, will we? And
that's what I'm assuming from the information that's on there.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as Michael said here, we do have a football operations director, but he will probably be answerable to Susan Wheelan. Remember that tree that you have where the bird above shits on the ones below? So you got top of the top, if you pardon the pun. Then Susan and John underneath, and then it will move down to other directors and what have you. But like I say, if 2 of those 3 are not getting on, and I think if you're going to pick a battle with John Rudkin at Leicester, then you might as well just write your resignation letter.
Yeah, I'd love to on the wall when they had that meeting, just to hear how he worked, talked his way out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at John's been there for Top. I accept that. After the dad died, I'm not saying that Top wasn't upset or concerned. That John wasn't upset or concerned for Top, and he took advantage. Far be it from me saying that. I don't believe necessarily that was the case, but I think the opportunity was there. The door was open, and he walked through it, allegedly. I mean, you've got somebody there that Top is trusting that's had, before he joined the club, he came with no football experience. He basically was training some of the youth free of charge, ended up in charge of the academy, and has extended it from there to where he is now. But when you compare him with that, was it Andrew? Who was that guy that was sacked by Newcastle?
Oh, no, you're on about the guy who ended up
He went to Newcastle, was only there, or went to Man United, one of them, and he
Was it
was
Ashdown or something like that?
yeah, something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, they stole him from Brighton or something like that, or Brighton got him, or yeah, I know what you mean, like Dan Ashdown.
You know what I mean. He wasn't there, but when you look at the experience that he's had, that's the sort of person we want. Or, as a lot of people are saying, a Nigel Pearson, somebody that knows football. Now you can get by, and like you say, we have to accept that in the good times, Rudkin was part of that team. When we look back and go, fucking hell, how did we get 10 million for McAteer or 8 million for Justin? You say, well, John Wood, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know what each person's responsibility is. But the question that I put out as a tweet and on Facebook was, if John Rudkin had gone instead of Susan Wheelan, would he have got the backing that has come out from ex-players and ex-managers that Susan has got? This is what Wes Morgan said, Captain Fantastic. Reflecting on the news of Susan Whelan's departure last week, just want to say a big thank you to her for all the support and help she has provided for me during my time at Leicester. The ability to connect and understand people is extraordinary. The amount of energy, time and passion she puts into her work is exemplary and goes unnoticed. Her love and loyalty for the club is undoubted. The good times and memories shared over the years will be treasured. Good luck to the future and whatever is next. I mean, as complimentary as that is to Susan, I'd say that's quite damning to John. Did he come out and said that?
Yes and no. I suppose it depends how you see something like that, because again, going back to that list that I read out, it does insinuate that she actually did have quite a connection, that she was breaching that gap between the management and the board. She was integrating with players, maybe helping them get sponsorship deals, helping them reach goals that they wanted. You've seen Ted Lasso, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen that where the lady that kind of she does that for them. I'm not saying that's her role, but you know what I mean. It kind of feels like she's been doing that for them, looking after them, making sure they're well looked after during hard times for the club. Manager sackings became a little roundabout for a while, so I'm sure she's got that. The only way we will ever know, Chris, what players, coaches, managers, former staff members, maybe even people that worked underneath them that have left the club will ever think of John, is when Top pulls the trigger, or like Rasputin, he rises to the top with a staff and goes, I have the power now, I control.
I'll tell you somebody who won't be coming out and speaking well about John Rudkin is a certain Mr. Vardy. Now, before we get on to him, just to say that Wes Morgan, this was a few months ago, was speaking to Dave, and he was saying, like, God, yeah, it's such a toxic atmosphere. It's not like this at Forest, etc. Well, at the time, Forest were doing very well, and when you're doing very well, you
wouldn't have an atmosphere as now.
Well, exactly. But this is what Mr. Vard had to say. It's hard to imagine Leicester without Susan. She's been such a constant presence, not just in her work, but in the way she's poured her heart into the people around her. Susan has given so much of herself, time, energy, passion, loyalty. She stood by people, worked tirelessly, and always went above and beyond, not because she had to, but because that's simply who she is. Those of us who know Susan personally know her value goes far beyond titles and positions. She is a force of kindness and clarity, and a friend who listens without judgment and speaks truth with courage. On a personal level, I can't thank Susan enough for everything she did for me. She believed in me when I doubted myself. She encouraged me when I was struggling, and she always had the right words at the right time. Her kindness, honesty, and wisdom have left a mark of my life that I'll carry with me always. Thank you, Susan, for everything you've done, not only for me personally, but also my family. You've made a bigger difference than you'll ever know. We wish you all the success for the future. I mean, wow.
Yeah, that statement is very, very, gracious. Very loving in a way that she almost gave that parental figure for the players. I know we're not going to go down the realms of what a player earns and all that rigmarole to say anything, but they're away from their family a lot. We don't consider that. They go on these pointless internationals, some of them, bless them. So they go to another country, they go on away day travels, they're training, they're away from the house from probably 7 till 7, depending on how far they've got to travel. There's match days. Well, obviously they see their family just before and just after, but it's a long time to spend away. And the fact that she kind of seems to hold that together and keep that going for them, it does feel like it's a big loss. And maybe that's why, despite the concerning thing is, Chris, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I'm a little bit, it could go either way. We'll soon find out in a few weeks or months or whenever they make a decision. Was it right to dismiss her, right now? Or did they maybe say, look, we need to find a replacement, but you're not going to have a job come December? And she's gone, no, I'd rather just resign now, and it's taken out of their hands. Or did they make it a rash decision? Because you don't just replace a CEO with Mr. Joe Bloggs, the CEO that kind of yes, no, so 3 bags officer. You've got to replace a personality, Chris. You have to replace a personality. Then, and it's kind of like when we say, "Oh, you never replace Vardy, you never replace Mahrez," and then we look at Fatawu and we think, "Oh, maybe we're getting there with if we forget how good Mahrez is and put it on some kind of pedestal level, we're going to get close to it with Fatawu, and hopefully at some point in the future we'll get there with Vardy." You have to get there with it. You have to have somebody that comes in and goes, okay, maybe not as great as Susan. Maybe she doesn't do all the things that Susan does, but yeah, this person's really doing they're getting the basics right of what these players.
But I don't think that the answer is, depending how long it's going to be. If we're talking about Pop doing it for a month or two while he gets somebody else in, but long term, that for me, I'm sorry, that is a disaster for the club. And all I'm seeing here is, like I said, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. I think we're seeing the rise and fall of Leicester City. And I think we've got those blue tinted glasses on a bit because we're doing well under Marty. And we're winning, everything's fine. And I think I've always said, if the club, it's like you when you wake up in the morning, if you've got the shits, you're not going to be able to go out and do a lot for yourself, are you? You're going to be ill. You're going to be on the toilet all the time. You've got to get yourself right. And I think that's the thing with the club. I think there's a bit of a cancer in that club at the moment, and I don't think. Michael says there. Yes, I fear you're right, Chris. I think we are. I think we've enjoyed our, 15 minutes in the spotlight. And I think it's now back to where you go back to where you belong. And I don't think you can say one thing. I think it all stems from Vichai passing, but whether it all happened too soon for Top or whatever, it would have happened at some point. And you have to make the best of it. And I don't necessarily think he has. And people will turn around and say, well, look, we won the FA Cup after Vichai passed. That was still basically his club at the time.
Yeah. I suppose, and I suppose in a way you could say that, because when his passing came, sadly, tragically, things don't just crumble. Your business didn't go bust. You don't just lose everything. It doesn't all happen all at once like that. It takes a few years for them effects to come into play, because Vichai would have set this club up for 2-3 seasons. And then had them 3 years to have developed a plan to keep Leicester within the constraints, but kept them moving in that projected forward way we was going to. Where the failings come into it, and Top is included in this, as well as Susan, as well as John, and probably as well as a few others, Chris, is in that 2 to 3 year period that Vishai kind of left the boat afloat, if you will, they didn't plan for anything afterwards.
No.
Did not plan anything after it to kind of keep this club going. And that's why, again, the up-down roller coaster of Leicester is back in terms of promotion and relegation, and also ins and outs throughout the club.
I want to look at Nigel Pearson. As Ray said earlier, Pearson was even stronger. This is what he is reported in Leicestershire Live. Leicester City will miss Susan Wheelan's unrivalled business acumen and people skills. Shocked Nigel Pearson has said following the chief executive's exit. Wheelan's departure from the King Power was announced last week, ending a run of 14-15 years in the position. And that is something, and I've seen this happen when somebody leaves a position, and we'll come back to what he said in a second, but when somebody leaves a position, when a person is, let's say, into somebody, or let's say, you go into your boss and go, look, boss, I want a 10% pay rise. And you went, no, you're not worth that. No. Or if you don't, I have been offered another job. Well, I suggest you take it. So you go off and take that other job. What are you losing? You're using your hard work and dedication to the company to start with, but what you are also losing is your inside knowledge, and this isn't available in anything that's written down or any books or manuals, but your knowledge of the company, how it works, who does what. So a new guy comes in, gets your job. Yes, he can do your job as it is, but he doesn't have that extra. He doesn't know that it's Bob that does this. Or don't ask Frank to do that because Sarah's better at doing it. You knew that. He didn't. He doesn't. So you're losing that as well as just the person doing that job. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm thinking you can't always replace A with B.
No, and that kind of goes back to what I said earlier, Chris. They haven't just got to replace, Susan with another CEO that knows football, because you're going to lose that regardless, Chris. No matter what the role is, whether it was whether we kept whether she kept the role until she retired, you're eventually going to have it. Yeah. However, you could say that maybe implementing her having an assistant would have been a good idea. I'm not saying she didn't, but football managers, or head coaches as we're supposed to call them, but fuck that rule, managers have assistant managers. Shakespeare to Pearson. So at least when Leicester were trying to fill the void, they had Shaky in charge, God rest his soul. But that helped. That really helped, because the part was being held together by...
I always say, when Ranieri took over, the best thing that happened was that he kept Shaky on as a second assistant manager, because he could say, right, I'm going to play Mahrez, at left back. And let's be honest with you, some managers would have done, mentioning no names, bell end. But Shakespeare's there saying, "What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
don't do that." Yeah. And unfortunately, that's what I think we'll have lost, and a lot of contacts that she had in the business community, because they were big. Let's be honest with you, they didn't just buy the club; they bought into the community, and she was a big part of that. Like I say, yes, things she did wrong without a doubt. Nobody, sun doesn't shine out of her arse, but I'm still wondering if this is the right decision. Pearson, who took City to the Premier League for the first time in a decade and also worked for King Power OH Leuven, said he crossed swords with Wheelan on occasion. But he says her integrity, decision-making and loyalty were unparalleled, and that City would not have been able to navigate tricky situations without her. Writing on social media, Pearson said, "The news of Susan Wheelan leaving Leicester City has come as a huge shock and surprise to me. Not a huge shock and surprise to me. A contribution to the incredible rise and success of the football club as a business and sporting operation is absolutely in no doubt. But vitally, as most managers like myself would recognise and discover, some of her best, meaningful, important work from my own experience was done during difficult and turbulent times. Business skill set, her strength of personality, directness and ability to make tough decisions during stress is unrivaled in my experience. When we first met at an interview, her presence and strength was very clear, but importantly, her understanding of the role and place was crystal clear to me. Her loyalty to Coombe Vichai and the whole family was set in stone. She was literally King Power's safe pair of hands during the earlier period of their wonderful Leicester City adventure. Mine, along with Craig Shakespeare and Steve Walsh's understanding of how to hopefully find the right way to communicate with our new bosses, was constantly reviewed via the feedback, care and assistance of Susan's contribution to our professional relationship. She never abused this authority as the conduit to the owners. This is not always the case that I've experienced at other clubs. The understanding of cultural nuances is pivotal to achieving a successful and meaningful relationship, and an advice to me in relation to this is something I cherish. I have both learned and in turn passed on that advice to help others I've experienced and encountered in life. Susan and I both being, let's say, of a strong will and mind, I think we can agree with that, have crossed swords, we still both now, when we occasionally meet, reminisce over some of those encounters. One of her watchwords, compromise, is etched in my brain. My God, it goes on. It goes on and on. Our fondness and respect for each other has never waned. We are both cut from the same cloth. I am proud to manage both King Power clubs, been sacked at both, and personally and family heartache with departure, which has been difficult for us to overcome. I've always counted on the integrity and honesty of Susan Wheelan. Someone Leicester City would not have achieved and navigated the choppy waters of this wonderful sport without. Good luck, Susan. You've been a brilliant colleague, boss, ally and friend. Love to you and husband Robbie from us all. The Leicester City family will truly miss you and your wonderful wisdom and love. Wow.
Jesus Christ. Nigel, was that a sorry to hear you're unemployed letter, or was that a eulogy at a funeral? Really, yeah, man. She's lost her job. She's not dead. That was deep.
It was, but I have
to end it with condolences to your family and your husband. Jesus.
I have to say, probably.
And also, how many Twitter characters did these lot get? That was a book.
I don't think that went out on Twitter. I think it'd have needed about 10 pages. But to me, out of all the managers that have been at the club since King Power took over, and there's been a few, let's be honest, I think he's the one that is best positioned to say those sort of things, because he's worked for both, been sacked by both, been re-employed by one, was sacked and then unsacked by one. But again, I'm going to read between the lines. That says more about a certain other person, Mr. Rudkin, than it necessarily says as much about him as it does about Susan Wheelan.
Yeah, maybe, because if that's the effort and elongated, love of affection that all these players and ex-members of staff and managers and that are shown to her, I can imagine it would just be a case of breaking news: Leicester sacked John Rudkin. Lol. Pearson with a thumbs up.
I don't think you'd have got any of those three coming forward. I know we certainly wouldn't have got Vardy coming forward for John Rudkin.
No, it doesn't. That feels like a show of support that they feel a bit of injustice as to, like you said, Chris, which one of them should have gone. Again, personally feel that both of them for different reasons should have been gone. Susan just because of maybe the financial side of things and the failings that way. John because he needs to get that so far out of that man's arse he must be impaled. And it's almost getting cringe how Top must go into a board meeting and being told, yeah, these two have really balls up. La 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 la. I won't have anything bad about John said. John is my friend. I can't see his troubles. It's just getting cringe. It's getting cringe to the almost to the point, Chris, where if it carries on and the club keeps going downwards after Susan's gone and we've got a new CEO in, I'll just be like, sell the club, mate, get out. Because you're just a child. Literally, you are a child if you're not willing to see your bum boy John as another problem.
Oh, I know. I agree. I mean, I can't disagree with anything you've said. I would have added allegedly on the end of it.
Allegedly. Yeah. What the great Maldini once said, allegedly.
Yes, great Maldini always said, add allegedly on the end. Ronald says, with the comments from Wes, Jamie and Nigel are very good. I'm sure she'll have absolutely no problem getting another job at another club if Susan wishes to continue her career in football. I mean, there was rumours about whether she would actually go back to King Power Company, which was roughly where she was before.
Wouldn't that be weird and tell you where the problem was?
Well, the family aren't running it anymore, so she, they can't say. Although, in fairness, I'm going to say that I can imagine Top actually saying, like, there's a job going at King Power, do you want it? Because he's that sort of a person, isn't he?
That's very true. I mean, that would be plot twist, wouldn't it?
It would.
All these shows, all these statements, and then Sue just comes out wearing a King Power shirt going, surprise, motherfuckers.
Yes. But, like, when you look at the match after Vichai passed, how many ex-managers were there?
Yeah.
Managers that he had sacked.
Yeah.
Twice in Pearson's case. And yet there was still there for the family. And, I can imagine Top. So, look, that hasn't worked out. Go and have a bit of a break, get your head right. And if you want a job, there's this job going at King Power. I wouldn't be surprised. What was interesting, I've got to say, about Jamie, just going back to Jamie Vardy's statement, is we've all said that, and I'm sure he did have, Vichai was part of the reason that Jamie didn't give up football when he was thinking about going and repping for Club 1830 in Ibiza. And I'm sure he'd have been bloody good at that. 3 Red Bulls for everybody. But it looked like Susan had a bit of a say in that as well.
It definitely sounds like that. I know that if I remember reading Jamie Vardy's book, it was noted about Susan and Nigel and a few other members of staff that really helped him reconsider his decision, or that he was potentially going to be making at that point. So yeah, she's obviously had that influence. And again, if that's suggested by what her role is supposed to entail, that's the core what they need to get right. Because there's no point getting in some aficionado that's going to do all the rest of the stuff if he's absolutely just not a people person. Because that's when you kind of go, great, I've got an issue and I don't really want to go to bloody boring McGee upstairs because he won't listen. He ain't got a clue out. He's like a robot. I ain't going to get no sense out of him. I'm not going to know anything. So they need to get that balance right. If you're going to have the balls to make this call, then you've got to have the sense and the balls to make a good appointment going forward. So with that in mind, Chris, obviously she didn't have an assistant in the making because they gave it to Balls Cheeks Maloney, right? Temporarily. Let's hope that is the case. Would you?
It's Top that's taken the position, isn't it?
Top that's temporarily taking it over.
Yeah.
If things improve over the next, I'm going to say 6 months, Chris. Let's say things do improve, that he's brought in the business side of her family to take over Sue's role with him. I know he's the main proprietor of it, but let's say he's going, right, I'm going to use my business sense here and I'm going to organise our finances. I've got a financial director that did this. He's on the board. We're going to work this out. And in 6 to 8 months, Chris, by the end of the season, let's say, Leicester announce, huge profits. They've announced a complete restructure. They've announced this, and it's all sunshine, lollipops, and all sorts going on. And everybody's like, wow, Top's taken the bull by the horns, and he's actually proposed a club. Would we then sit here in that time, Chris, and I'll ask you this personally, because I want to, all right? Would you then go, okay, then we don't need one. Top can have the role. Top's brought it in-house. Top's brought it to the high level himself and the others. We don't need a CEO if this is how good things are in that sense. Or would you then say, well, maybe we need a role like a liaison that connects.
No, I would not say that. No, I would want a separate CEO in, somebody that can look at it that maybe hasn't got links to Leicester. I used to work for Blackburn Rovers.
Yes.
And there's two of us who were up for the job. I was up for it, and I didn't realise that there was another. I worked for the Burnley Express at the time, and my colleague Suzanne, who worked in a different department, had also applied for the job. And she was a huge Blackburn Rovers fan. And I said afterwards, I said, how come you didn't, And they said, you got the job despite other things, but one of the factors was the fact that you weren't a Blackburn Rovers fan. So that you could see what we were offering, not because...
objectively, yes.
Objectively, yeah. So I think you need somebody that... I think it's down to Top now. The decisions Top, I think, needs to make is bring in a director of football, give that person, whether it's a lady or a gentleman, time, because it will take time. You're not going to step into Susan's shoes when she's been wearing them for 15 years and just carry on.
Yeah.
You're going to have to build...
high heels is a bark. So
it is, especially if it's a male replacement. That's not a male replacement. Move John Rudkin to a position that you can keep him happy and he's still going to keep you in touch. Maybe as the link between you and the club when you're away, and bring in a new director of football. Then I think we will start to see a turnaround. Then I think we might see what we're alluding to then. When I go back to sort of what Dave was saying earlier, and let me bring this back up here. Good God.
We'll get there in the end.
I will. 7, 8, 7, 6. Oh, bugger off. There we go. Eventually. It was stuck on 6 and 7. It was kept going round. That is what... I picked those. That wasn't all of what Dave was saying. That's just the things. If there's a toxic atmosphere, the only way you're going to clear that toxic atmosphere is, A, if it is Susan Wheelan, then they may have done that by getting rid of her. That's the thing. If it isn't just Susan Wheelan, you've just stuck a plaster over the problem. So maybe, you need to look at that. No leaders. You got Top, who people will obviously, if he says jump, everybody will say how high. And I think if John Rudkin says jump to a few people, everybody will say fuck off and jump yourself. There's no communication, not talking, toxic atmosphere, no leaders. Somebody wants to sell the club and just get out of it. There's a lot there. And I think if we hadn't had the start we'd had, I think there would be more uproar about this.
Oh yeah, 100%. I wouldn't go as far to say that they've gone, wait a minute, let's see how Swansea goes, because obviously this was done beforehand. But it's not like they've gone, let's make sure we're in the playoffs at least before we sack her. They're going to make this decision. It's a long time coming. But like you said, Chris, just like giving the replacement a long time, which one of these does this render null and void to, or how many of these potentially does this, render null and void to? We won't know until maybe a couple of years down the line, Chris, when things just, because a bit like managers, Chris, you run off the same hymn sheet as Susan Wheelan for a while you get your bearings and figure stuff out. Things are going to go as per the norm, unless you are a Ranieri in that scenario and you really propel it, you might see a bit of a spike on the needle, but you won't see anything drastically good or bad for you might see things that are good and bad on that journey, but you won't see anything drastically bad or good where we're going, oh my God, what's just happened? Until 2, 3, maybe even up to 5 years in the future, Chris. And then you'll be able to go, well, she obviously wasn't causing this, wasn't causing that, wasn't doing it. Or we're going, the toxic atmosphere, the no communication, the 2 year, them sort of things suddenly kind of either reveal themselves as the reason, and we kind of go, you know what, lovely statements are made, but obviously Top knew what he was doing, or we're going to go, now we know why them players spoke so highly of her. We're going to find that out. And again,
we are, obviously. Ray says there, I used to work in radio and I had a boss that used to say, never work for a station that plays the kind of music that you like, or that you like, I think it should be said. You've got to look at it purely as a business. You have. I as you know, I'm a radio DJ Saturday and Sunday mornings, and the amount of music I play that I wouldn't say I like, if it was choice. Yeah, it was something that I wanted to play. It'd be non-stop 70s, although half of those are in jail, so I can't. But, so it is. You have to look at it. You do need objectivity. And Top, like I say, is he going to move to the UK full-time? I mean, I know things have happened with King Power, but he's still going to have fingers in pies there. And if he has to sell one, and it might be a case of choosing your favourite child, but is it Leicester or King Power? It might be Leicester, I would say, that probably goes. But I can't see him moving from Thailand to live here.
Right now, though, Chris, if you was to ask him right now, I think it would be a flip of a coin for him, because it would be King Power because of the state it's in, and maybe he wants to pass it, sell it, give me the money for it. Someone else who reckons they can take on the challenge and not rescue it, I guess, to a degree. By all means, have at it. You pay me this much to take over the company. And Leicester, given maybe the decision they've just made, he feels is going to regain that financial stability for him, that Leicester's the option. Or he could go, I save King Power because Leicester City is somewhat profitable and I make whatever amount. I sell the club for X amount. I can personally put all my attention back onto King Power and resurrect that and get us back floating on that. So right now, Chris, it depends where his head's at. If you said to him right now, one of them's got to go, he might. That's which part of his brain wins that argument. Is it that Leicester's profitable? We can still live in Thailand and operate Leicester, but the King Power's sinking. Let's get it sold.
It can still stay in Thailand and save the King Power, but they need somebody that is here 24/7, hands-on.
And that's where you replace.
Exactly. And then, look, all we ask, and I did put this out the other day, Top, just talk to us. Just let us know what's going on. The fans would be totally on side, and I go back to that year when we didn't get the rebuild that Brendan Rodgers wanted, because you'd kept it quiet about the PSR for the Europa League. Just talk to us. I know you used to be the one. Can you remember the last time Top spoke to the media?
Oh, probably in and around the Champions League.
Yeah, FA Cup time at the latest.
Yeah.
But he always used to talk to the media because his dad was never one for talking to the media. It always used to be Top. He doesn't talk to the media now. You've got a press officer. God knows what he does. I want that job. I want to be press officer at Leicester City Football Club. Top, give me that job now, because you know what I do? I'll sit on the fucking bog all day and just shit my life away and take your fantastic wage because you're paying that guy to do sweet fuck all.
I'll tell you what, Chris, if that's the case, if you ever want to replace the guy who hands out the microphones to the press conference, I'll take that role all day, every day, because the fucker's still not. We're in 2025 and I'm either hearing, for the question, how the fucking hell Paul I mean, said Maresca, and that was a flashback. How Paul Marty or Maresca, when he was in charge, or any manager's been able to hear a question asked for them.
I reckon, and I'm a great conspiracy theorist, but I reckon that they do it on purpose so that we can't see the question. All we do is see the answer.
Yeah.
But
no, so what you're saying is they've gone, hey, I've brought in a new media man. He's the guy who designed Mock the Week. More specifically, he designed, if this is the answer, what is the question part? So we're not going to hear the question, you're going to give the answer.
Yeah. And then we'll fill in the questions afterwards. Just nod. There's probably nobody sat there.
remember the COVID days where it was when I think it was Leeds and teams like that had cardboard cutouts.
Yes, yeah, and he's just there, and they just put those bits in afterwards. But we'll never know.
Going in there, Cleveland getting ushered out. It's like there's a fake press conference going on. Galway.
I know. But look, for me, the rest of this season, because we'll probably hear about PSR towards the end of the year, but the rest of this season is pivotal in our history. It could take us either way. Top needs to get it right. That's the thing. He doesn't get a second chance. If he gets it wrong now, then we could look. All I'll say is 2 words. Top, if you're listening, come here. Come in close. 2 words. Manchester United. I know. But there's an example of getting it wrong and not fixing it properly.
Well, yeah, prime example.
We've got Marty in, who looks to be doing a fantastic job. Let's sort out behind the scenes as well as in front of them.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got Marty and Saul Goodman as a lawyer, and if you know Breaking Bad, you get the reference. So we've got 2 parts, right?
And you know what? I hated his show on his own. But,
it just wasn't as good. I know they had Mike in it, and again, we're not spoiling anything because if you know, you know. But they just didn't. It didn't quite. It took too long for me to get to him being Saul.
He was good in little bits in Breaking Bad,
but he was a very good side character. Yeah, but it's a bit like Cleveland Brown from Family Guy getting his spin-off. It wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah.
On that note, Brad, thank you very much. At least it wasn't a cricket reference. Guys, like the video.
He said, always another cricket reference.
Fuck off. Guys, like the video, subscribe, click that notification bell. If you're watching on Catch Up, do exactly the same. Add your comments and thoughts in below. If you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much indeed. Bradley, thank you very much, sir. Have a good weekend. There's no football to ruin it for us. And we'll probably talk next week.
Yeah, no doubt. Look forward to it, mate.
Take care, buddy. Cheers now.
Yes.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.